Welcome to Lunch with Tech Leaders, where we have engaging conversations about software development and cloud engineering with industry leaders and subject matter experts. These episodes are created by the Great Lakes Tech Leaders, an online community of technology practitioners. Please come join the conversation by visiting gltl.rbn.ai. Again, that's gltl.rbn.ai. Now strap in, because we're deploying to production in 3, 2, 1.
Bi-weekly podcast where tech enthusiasts discuss the latest topics and trends in technology. So I'm Travis Walker. I'm going to be your host this week. And today we're going to try a little bit of a different format for this podcast than we normally do. And we're going to interview someone I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from. For those of you that are in the Discord server watching live, you can participate by putting your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those later in the show. If you're not listening and you want to engage with us more, we do have a growing community of tech enthusiasts in our Great Lakes Tech Leaders Discord server. You can find that at gltl.rbn.ai. So the guest here is Steven Ritchie. Steven brings years of experience in the tech industry, having roles in software engineering, project management, and engineering management. Is currently the principal engineer and software delivery coach for Valenjet. He's also the author of Pro.NET Practices. So, Steven, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Travis, for having me. As I said, I really enjoy this topic, and I just recently put up a blog post on this topic. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. Obviously, I recently came across that blog post you posted. So, yeah, can you give us a little bit more of an introduction and tell us a little bit more why this topic's interesting to you?
Sure. So let me just give you my background a little bit. So I've always had a passion for building things and fixing things. And that's really what sort of drove me to become an engineer. I've been developing software professionally since 1987. So I've been at this for a while. And I started mostly in programming in C++ and then C#. Recently, it's been more Python and TypeScript. But that software engineering background has often presented me, an opportunity to coach, mentor, or train software engineers. And so this topic is interesting to me because it's a frequent question. People ask me, how can I be more successful? And so I like to offer advice. And as I said, I enjoy coaching and mentoring. What is kind of most interesting to me is how people respond. I think one of the most common things is people say, when I give them advice, is they say, that's a lot of work. Is there an easier way? And I get other responses like, I don't like to read books, or I'm not a people person, or I don't want to change. And sometimes the response is, the problem isn't me. Why can't people see that, right? So I really enjoy the dialogue because a lot of what I can describe is what worked for me. What I can't tell you is what's going to work for you. The other thing is that as I've been in engineering leadership or engineering management, I really have started becoming a part of the promotion process or the hiring process. And so a lot of the things that we're looking for as employers, or we're looking in terms of developing engineers, are a lot of the things that I talk about, or I will talk about through the course of this conversation. But it comes really down to self-management, right? And that really comes down to three things: what to change to, and how to make the change. So a lot of these crucial skills are about changing things, right? That's what I hope we're going to do today is explore those self-improvement topics and talk about topics that either as an individual or as a team, people can kind of get better. And we can focus on this idea of becoming more productive as you advance in your career and just doing better as sort of an overall theme.
Great. Thank you, Steven. So in your blog post, you discussed kind of the improvement of natural skills such as problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, but also the importance of kind of acquired like domain expertise. In your experience, what mixture of knowledge and skill do you find to be most productive?
Yeah, so I would say the most productive engineers really combine all of them, right? That strong problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, domain expertise, right? So those four things are there. But if I were to rank them, I would say problem solving is number one, right? Things like being able to reproduce the problem, right? So how do you arrange your software so that you can isolate the scenario? How do you use the debugger to get in there and understand that? Or how do you use automated testing to drive the debugger to the defect? Things like knowing your mean time to resolution, right? Being able to track, like, how long does it take for me to learn about a defect, like get assigned a defect, and then put it into production? That time there is something you might want to know about yourself. Mean time to restoration, if you're an infrastructure side of it, right? Those types of things, those are problem solving, mean time to restoration. There's a video that I have in my blog post called Debugging Like a Pro. And what that really does is it outlines that debugging process. So number one, problem solving. Number two, I would put critical thinking. To be able to formulate a hypothesis really makes a big difference. When people can go in there and sort of think about what might be going wrong, they get really good at building things and fixing things, right? What might people want in an enhancement? What might this requirement really look like? What you're doing there is you're testing a hypothesis, right? I read this JIRA item, coding it up this way. Now I want to get feedback from whoever wrote this JIRA item. A lot of information gathering, a lot of that type of thing. Third, I would put creativity. It's something you should foster either in others or in yourself. You should be able to take time to be creative. And so one of the things that I think is very difficult for people is to force themselves to sit distraction-free. And that's a necessary part of being creative. If you don't know how to just sort of think about problems and be playful about them and create humor and those types of things, you and the team are going to have a hard time being innovative. So I think you should think about how do you foster creativity? And then the fourth thing I would put is sort of that domain expertise, right? It's likely that somebody else has that, but if you're not fostering it, then you should be developing it. And part of that is just having a business-focused mindset and creating diagrams that are very business-focused, but understanding the business vocabulary and the business processes. These are kind of part of that domain expertise. I find that software engineers who have these four things tend to get recognized and promoted as leaders or just as better software engineers.
Thanks for the overview of all those. So let's kind of talk a little bit about problem solving and creativity. So in your blog post, you speak to how importance of things like exploring other viewpoints, can be beneficial to that. Can you speak to how things like soft skills can impact creativity and problem solving?
Yeah, sure. So the three soft skills I typically talk about are communication, empathy, and emotional intelligence. And so let me tease these out and kind of relate them to creativity and problem solving. first of all, communication is important because you can't influence or persuade without communicating, right? You need to put an insight into somebody else's mind, right? That is your goal, and you express your ideas. So creativity and problem solving involve this. So the communication is going to travel from my mind, out my mouth, to your ears and into your mind. And that's part of the collaborative, creative problem-solving process. And it also kind of goes in reverse, right? Is once you hear something, how do you take what you think about it and echo that back to the other person so that they can confirm what was in their mind and what's in your mind are actually the same thing. And then another part of communication is being able to do some lightweight writing, right? Good Slack messages, good emails, good wikis, good documentation, right? Those also help in the sort of the creativity and problem solving because everybody gets on the same page. The second thing I would say is empathy as a soft skill is about other people's viewpoints, and that drives sort of these contributions. Other people need to know that their feelings are understood because other people's feelings will hold back their collaboration. And that's part of what you're trying to do with this empathy is be creative with other people and problem solve with other people. If you have no empathy or there is little empathy in the group, it's going to create suboptimal solutions. Why? Because it's usually somebody wins and somebody loses. And somebody is dominant and somebody is getting walked all over. So this negates trustworthiness, which is really a foundation of creativity. For those of us who've been around or worked for bad managers, you will see that this kind of lack of empathy crushes that creativity and problem solving. And the third, I would say, is this idea of emotional intelligence. I tease apart empathy and emotional intelligence, but oftentimes they're lumped together. But when I think of emotional intelligence, I'm talking about making others feel comfortable, creating conditions for motivation. You want people to feel sort of inherent motivation, like, I love what I'm working on. That's what people should feel, fun and challenge. So your job is as a software engineer, is to figure out how to love what you're doing. And there's sort of a people motivation part of that, right? I love working with them, right? I like working on a team. There again, as a software engineer, you ought to be somebody who is making that team feel like they like working with you, or be part of the glue that makes everybody on the team feel like they like working on that team or work with the people on that team. So this idea of an intelligence, emotional intelligence quotient, sort of an EQ, is really about sort of understanding that feelings and emotions sort of dominate some of the most productive parts. And the bottom line is you'll do your best work in a creative environment that's solving real problems by having good communication, a lot of empathy, and a lot of emotional intelligence. And so if you're not bringing it to the table, you want to make sure that the team is bringing it to the table. But if you're bringing it to the table, you'll be seen as the software engineer that's kind of making the difference.
Cool. So one of the hot topics right now is AI and the recent innovations that have come up. And, it feels like every week we have more and more things that can be perceived as threats to our jobs. Can you talk about, some of these skills and habits and how they can help you have a healthy relationship with AI as it continues to be part of our work?
Yeah, sure. I'm not an AI expert, so I can't really speak to the technical details here, but what I can do is kind of give you some of what I've seen in my experience and how that sort of played out. The first thing I would say is remember that AI augments your abilities or should augment your abilities, right? When I first started in my career, the software engineers who could use libraries effectively, what I mean by that is, the going to a library and researching something or having a good bookshelf, the technical library, that gave them an advantage. Later, it became the internet, and that gave those software engineers an advantage as they could research on the internet faster. I think today, software engineers who know AI are going to have an advantage, especially if they can prompt well and they can use copilots well. So understand how AI can help you. Some of the things that I'm seeing right now are clarifying requirements, coming up with testing scenarios, even looking for bugs in your code. These are the kinds of things you want to make sure you're capitalizing on. AI is going to help enhance your work, right? It's going to help you build things and fix things better, faster, stronger. You got to look at it in that positive way. It's going to increase your quality. For example, it's going to help you proactively find bugs. It's going to reduce you're going to have fewer escaped bugs through AI. These are all good things. For those of you who are fearful of AI, I would say let go of your hate, right? You want to take a perspective that these things have been around for productivity enhancements have been around for a long time. There's something called T4, Text Template Transformation Toolkit. 20 years ago, it was developed. It generated a lot of boilerplate code that many of us had to write by hand. And now it's open source. So for many of us C++ developers, we used to have to write a lot of this stuff by hand, and T4 basically eliminated that. If you look at tools like Wix, they're essentially no-code website builders. Before, people used to build websites that Wix can now do as a no-code solution. There are a lot of frameworks everywhere. Those frameworks used to be things that software engineers used to build. So I see this as sort of an extension of that. And so I would sort of search your feelings and really think about how you can AI-proof your software engineering career by sort of focusing on the things that you want to do, which is build things and fix things. Another thing you could do is just ask ChatGPT, right? Why won't software engineers be replaced by AI? Put that prompt in in ChatGPT right now and see what it comes back with. There's a lot of interesting thoughts that will help guide you on sort of AI proofing. There are some things that I do to stay up to date. There's a thing called the Superhuman AI newsletter. I get that. I've been doing personal projects with GitHub Copilot. Right now, I'm reading a book called AI Assisted Testing by Mark Winteringham. I think the hardest part is coping with the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and I don't know how any easy answer to that, but coping with the noise is there. But I'd also look at example GPT prompts that you could put in there or start playing with that. So I crafted a few here, like assume the role of a small business owner running a pet services business that includes grooming, boarding, and daycare services, right? What's that going to come back with? That's going to come back with a lot of information that help you understand maybe the software application that you're building or working on. There are other things that I've seen engineers use AI for to help them guide them in the planning or the release cycles and other things like that. So it'll definitely enhance many of the things that you're already doing. And I hope that gives you a healthy relationship with AI.
Yeah, awesome, Steven. I totally agree. I think, the people that don't embrace AI are going to be, left behind in some ways. So now estimation is a big topic in that very few people are actually can do it well. So over your career, what strategies do you see helping people be successful in estimation?
Yeah, this is a very important topic, and I think a lot of software engineers back away from it and say, I don't feel the need to be good at it, and I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think you should embrace it and lean into it. So the first thing I would say is start tracking yourself or your team. In other words, write down your estimate and then review it after the fact. Think to yourself, I said 3 days, it took 2 days, why? You want to figure out where your estimating error is coming from. Find the gaps and the differences. If they're random, you're probably not going to be able to do anything about them. But if they're systemic, you're going to want to feed that understanding into making better estimates the next go around. The second thing I would say is understand that estimation effort and estimation accuracy are not are strangely correlated. So what I mean by that is some more estimating effort is hugely positive. So that more effort, rather than no effort, more effort is good. Too much effort spent estimating is usually very unhelpful. So what you want to do is you want to find that sweet spot. And I've seen this over and over again where teams spend too much time estimating and their estimates are really bad. Some strategies here are things like relative size is very important. Things like t-shirt sizing and say, this thing is small, this is medium, this is extra small. Split things, so make every job as small or extra small if you can. And what you're going to find is sort of the average of the averages converges to the average. What that means is that your error in estimating very small things will go up and down, but over time, you'll have consistency. Big things have big error in estimating. So small things have small average error. So keep them very small, and you'll find the averages will get to sort of a stability point. The other thing is that team estimates tend to get diverse input, and that improves estimates. The second, so I'm talking about two things, sort of tracking yourself, understanding that more effort doesn't necessarily get you a better estimate. And then the third is using strong commitment language. If you say something like, I will deploy this to stage by 5 p.m. today, that is strong commitment language. Force yourself to make and keep commitments. This is going to help you estimate better, right? Because you're making a commitment. And then focus on why you can't meet commitments, right? If you can't make commitments, figure that out. If you can't keep commitments, figure that out. And then change something, right? You will usually pinpoint a reason and then talk about that thing, right? Maybe the requirements you're given are vague. That's why you can't give an estimate, right? Then we need to be talking about who's giving you vague requirements. See if you can get them to change. The last thing I'll mention is ask this question, who is micromanaging, right? When someone can't trust you or the team, focus on your trustworthiness, right? Why can't your estimates be trusted? the team and you as an individual need to take responsibility for your own output and your own ownership. So focus on that part of it, right? Once you become more trustworthy, you will be, or hopefully will be, trusted because your estimates will be better. The other aspect here on micromanaging is that you can say no, or at least you can say, I want to say yes, but something's got to give, right? Some pushback is possible, even if you're sort of soft pedaling it. I respond like this. Before I say, here's what I typically say. Before I can say yes to this, help me review my to-do list so that I can find something to say no to. What I am doing is I'm being prepared for some micromanager to come in and throw a new thing on my plate that's going to destroy my estimate. And I try to share with them my to-do list, my board, and say, look, something's got to give. I'm going to say I'm going to say yes, but only once we figure out what's going to give. So those are the kinds of things that I think help as sort of strategies for more accurate estimation, because over time you get to the root cause and you figure out how to push back.
Yeah, good advice, Steven. We've all had moments in our career where we've been passionate about wanting to solve some issue or fix a technical debt or adjust a process, and we feel like management won't listen to us. What soft skills lead engineers to be successful in advocating for change?
Yeah. So 2 things to really do, or 2 things I advise here. One is present ideas convincingly. And then the second is gain the trust and support of management. These are things you have to do as part of your career over the long run. Sometimes it doesn't happen quickly, and sometimes you can't control or influence it. But I would say focus your energies on those 2 things. So let's put that kind of in more actionable terms, if you will. Focus on the changes that management sees as important. This has to be an attribute in what you're trying to do. So what does management care about? That's typically like 4 things, right? Financial benefits, improve manageability, improve their ability to manage things, increase quality attributes like fewer defects, more scalable, those types of things, and more team effectiveness or project effectiveness, right? These are kind of the 4 buckets that typically things fall into. So map what you want to do into one of these 4, right? And then learn to quantify value. So start tracking indirect or direct measures of value. For example, your escape defect count is an indirect measure of value. If the escape defect count is going down as the result of some automated testing you've wanted to do, you should be able to track that and show, hey, we did a little bit of this, things got better. We want to do more of this so that things will get even better. So performance complaints, right, are going down because we wanted to do a little bit of this, we did it, and now performance has improved, we want to do more of it. So whatever the angle you're trying to persuade, try and have some measures behind it. They don't have to be direct. They can be indirect as long as they correlate. So show those trends, take an economic view, right? So it all comes back to return on investment. Whatever you want to do, if it has a return on investment or you can make that case, you'll be more persuasive. The next thing is this idea of being able to advocate and persuade, right? Can you clearly communicate the benefits and the implications of what you're trying to do? If you can't do that, don't be surprised that management isn't on board. The second thing is what are the concerns of management, right? Just ask that question. What are your concerns that block us doing this? Try and find some common ground and compromise, right? We'll do a little bit of this, peppered in with all of this, right? So if you have 80% of what you're doing is new feature development with 20% of this, and that's unacceptable, maybe 10% and 90% will be acceptable. Try and find that. Also, be patient, be persistent, don't give up, right? If you really, truly believe this is worth doing, keep ringing that bell, keep knocking on that door. The next thing is really about being trustworthy. I think this is where a lot of software engineers fall down. You should prioritize technical tasks based on urgency and importance, right? Similar to triaging patients in an ER. If you're going to management and saying, hey, we need to give this person a facelift and there are people bleeding out over there, they're not going to trust you, right? So focus on the red tasks, right? The things that need to be done first, and avoid treating all tasks as equally urgent. I think there is noise that a lot of engineers bring in. So I want you to recognize and ignore that noise. So for example, pridefulness. I've had engineers say, we want to do this because we're not proud of what we've done so far. Well, that's not going to get management on board because it sounds like it's just one's pridefulness. Or they'll say, this is new, or this is a hot thing, right? Those are just noisy and they don't really feed what people who are going to approve these things value. So another key thing is focus on others and their needs, most specifically customers and users. If you have a technical thing where you say, I want to upgrade X, try to explain how it's going to improve performance. I've seen this specifically where a software engineer wanted to take us from one .NET framework to another .NET framework. Because they did that, they could upgrade a framework. And because they upgrade that framework, the performance doubled and it saved the company both money and it improved the customer and user experience. So thinking about the customers and the users will help you sort of focus your conversation in a way that will kind of get you that traction you're looking for. Designing your technical environment for efficiency is something you should be doing or thinking about doing, right? So if you've got spaghetti code, you should be making some effort to chip away without having to go to management, right? Don't go to them and say, we're going to rewrite everything. Do some small amount of tidying is just becoming more trustworthy. And let's see, I think kind of a key thing here is oftentimes the real problem with a lot of these technical initiatives is that there's sort of a constant overwhelm. The technical team is just overwhelmed and they never seem to be able to catch their breath and do the things that they need to do. So one thing that I would say is try to figure out how to get out of that, right? If you're constantly feeling like you're running on a treadmill, there's probably some waste there. And if you can eliminate that waste, you can start working on these technical tasks and you can kind of get into a better position. There's a really good TED Talk out there about an ER doctor who talks about sort of triaging your crazy busy life. And what she does in that whole TED Talk is really explain how to get out of sort of crazy busy mode and into something where things are a lot more under control. And the software engineers, that get there get to do a lot more of the kind of things that others sort of like management won't let us complain about.
Cool. So earlier this week, our Great Lakes Tech community kicked off a mentorship program for the summer. And many of those mentees will probably watch this podcast and enter the tech workforce over the coming years. What advice do you have for the skills that they should focus on while they're in school?
Yeah. So first, I would say continuous learning. Get into that mindset. I often tell people that you must take an education, right? You were given a grade, you're given a diploma, but you must take an education. And that an education is actually perishable, right? Just out of school, everything you learned in school is going to wither. It'll be good foundation, but its shelf life is not as long as you think. So that mindset of the lifelong learner is really going to point you in the direction of keeping up with technological advancements, and you're going to need to learn how to do that. The second thing I would say is problem-solving skills. We mentioned it earlier, but it's not just the problems that you had when you were in school. You want to find authentic problems. So where can you find them before you graduate? Co-op programs is a good place, or part-time work as an intern. The other thing I would say is when you teach others, that is actually a very good problem-solving approach. You're going to need strong analytical and problem-solving skills to be able to teach other people strong problem-solving and analytical skills, right? It also forces yourself to have that know-how, right? You've got to be able to explain it, so you really got to have it. I think the other sort of the third thing is train yourself or think outside the box and innovate, right? Think about improv or some other creative class. These give you the ability to sort of react and think outside the box. Hackathons, code katas. There are other kinds of challenges out there that are going to force you to think outside the box. Look for those opportunities and get engaged in those. Look at soft skills as important. I personally did not value them as much when I was in school, but today I realize that they're really very valuable. So improve how you communicate, improve teamwork, emotional intelligence, these types of things. There's a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of videos, there are a lot of books and topics on that. Think about debate team or joining a project team, ways that you can get involved with sort of exercising these soft skills, or at least watching other people who have good soft skills. Think about academic fields like organizational behavior. I took an organizational behavior class, and it was really powerful and interesting to me. And then the final thing I would say is think about your own adaptability, right? Are you open to change? Are you adaptable in fast-paced situations? There's this idea called the OODA loop. The OODA stands for observe, orient, decide, act. It is a framework of how quickly can you deal with a fast-paced situation. There are lots of games that help you. I used to play rugby. Travis, I believe you played rugby as well. It is full of all of these situations. We have to observe what's going on. You're going to kind of orient yourself, position yourself, decide what you're going to do. Are you going to tackle the person or not tackle the person? And then you actually have to act on that decision. The things like Krav Maga or self-defense, similar sorts of things. How are you going to observe what's going on, orient yourself, decide, and act? And I'm sure there are lots of games out there and situations where you do exactly the same things. These are going to give you more adaptability, and comfortableness with change. It's going to really help you in your career.
Thank you, Steven. So now, those of you in the audience, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat.
Now, somebody out there has to have a question.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, I don't see anybody typing, so I guess we'll conclude the episode. So thanks, Steven, for spending time with us today. So our next episode will be May 29th, and it's going to bring the return of our co-hosts, Adam Oberhausen and Tom Kowalski. They have a special guest joining them who's going to bring expertise to the subject of the role of technology in the spread of misinformation. So we hope you all join us for that interesting topic. So thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.